Good evening. It is 7 o'clock, October 8th, 2018. I call the first meeting of October to order. My name is Jeff Matthews, President of the Speedway Town Council. I would like to acknowledge the others that are joining me here this evening. To my far right, Eileen Fisher.
Good evening.
Jason Delisle.
Good evening.
Vice President David Lindsay.
Good evening.
Gary Rakes.
Hello.
Town Manager Jacob Blaisdell.
Good evening.
Our Clerk Treasurer Monty Combs.
Good evening.
And our Town Attorney Bob Clutter.
Hello.
The agenda has been posted, and we will be following that this evening. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 2 is approval of the council minutes dated September 24, 2018. Those have been distributed. Any questions, changes? Hearing none, those will be approved. Item number 3, Ordinance 1309, approval of the 2019 budget for the civil Town of Speedway. This is first reading. Jacob?
Thank you, Mr. President. So the budget has been appropriately advertised and noticed, as has the public hearing for tonight. The budget is essentially what was described during the budget hearing meetings that we had, the public meetings. The one exception is an increase in the fire capital budget of $11,000. That was for a grant that was awarded to the town. And we will be making an $11,000 appropriation for that capital match for radios and some exhaust equipment to help with exhaust that builds up in the department. The budget is a $10.4 million general fund budget. About 90% of that goes to public safety. The remaining 10% going to administrative costs and other capital costs, primarily in my budget and the clerk treasurer's budget. It does allocate a little over $1.1 million for infrastructure. That is a little more than revenue, but we do have some modest reserves. The reason we're budgeting that is because the state is making more and more funding available through grants for capital expenditures. So we're talking roads, bridges, sidewalks, those sorts of things. And should we have the opportunity to take advantage of those grants, we would like the funds to be available in the budget. And like I said, wise spending in the past has left some reserves there that give us the flexibility and freedom to do that. It also allocates $326,000 for Parks and Recreation and $270,000 for the Cumulative Capital Fund, which is a little below the revenue that we expect. So we're trying to build up some modest reserves in that fund as possible. Just want to thank my team and my department leaders for the work that they put into it. It's kind of just gets summarized into just a few numbers, but there's a lot of thought and effort that goes into it. And my background in budgeting is probably a little bit of a curse for my team. I can be a little bit particular about what I want and how I want things and ask a lot of questions, but they've put a lot of thought into it, a lot of thoughtful discussion. I appreciate their efforts. And we'd appreciate your passage on first reading.
Thank you, Jacob. At this time, we are going to open it up for public comment on ordinance number 1309. So it is 7:04. Would anybody like to speak? Okay. Hearing none, it is still 7:04. So we will close public comment.
Mr. President, I make a motion we approve ordinance 1309 on first reading this evening.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 1309 on first reading. Any other discussion? Any from the audience? Any from council? Gary?
One question. Previously, ordinances still need to be approved twice, especially a budget.
So just,
So this is first reading only?
This is reading only, and just verifying we'll have a second reading in a couple of weeks as planned.
Yes, sir.
So, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0 on first reading. Item number 4 is Ordinance 1310, approval of the 2019 budget for the school, Town of Speedway. This also is the first reading. We're going to open it up for public comment, and it is 7:05. So anyone would like to come up and ask questions regarding the budget for the town budget? Okay. Hearing none, we will close the public comment for the Town of Speedway school budget at 7:06.
Mr. President, I move that we approve 2019 budget for school Town of Speedway first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 1310 on first reading. Any questions from the audience? Any additional from council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0, first reading. Item number 5, Ordinance 1311, approval of the 2019 budget for the Speedway Public Library. This too is first reading. We will open public comment at 7:06 if anybody would like to come up and ask questions regarding the library budget. Okay, hearing none, we'll close it at 7:07.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve ordinance 1311 for the 2019 budget of the Speedway Public Library.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 1311 on first reading. Any questions from the audience? Any from council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0, first reading. And item number 6, Ordinance 1312, approval of the 2019 budget for the Speedway Public Transportation, first reading. We are going to open public comment up at 7:07. Time's flying when we're having fun. Okay, we're going to close it at 7:08.
Mr. President, I move that we approve ordinance 1312, ordinance for 2019 budget for Speedway Public Transportation, first reading.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 1312. Any questions from audience? Any from council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0 on first reading. Item number 7, Ordinance 1308, an ordinance amending Chapter 9.60 of the Speedway Town Code regarding park rules and regulations. This is second reading. Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is the second reading, as you noted. Last meeting, we had a presentation from our Parks Director explaining that this is to hopefully make some modernization changes to our parks. The last time that the ordinance was adjusted was back in the 70s, so some changes were needed just to update and kind of accommodate newer toys and concepts and technologies. I don't know if it makes sense to go into, Tammy Smith is here. I don't know if it makes sense to have a representation of that ordinance. But like I said, it's mainly to just modernize, make some adjustments, things that the Parks Board has asked for and approved within the board. And they would ask for your passage on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we approve ordinance 1308 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 1308 on second reading. Is there any comments from the audience? Any from council?
Before we vote, I'd just like to thank Tammy for the work she's done here on this ordinance in particular. I know she's given it a lot of thought. She's asked for a lot of input from residents as well as staff because of the impact of folks using the parks today from maybe what the parks were designed to do back in the 60s and 70s. And Jacob, I know that wasn't a time that you know anything about.
No, not
But,
really. I'm sure it was a good time.
yeah, but I just want to thank Tammy for the work she did to put this together.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. Item number 8, approval of claims and utility adjustments from our clerk treasurer, Monty Combs. Monty?
Thank you, Mr. President. The usual set of claims, if I can say, for the period of September the 22nd through October the 5th. If you have any questions, fine. And with that, if you can pass them, I'd appreciate it very much.
Mr. President, I make a motion, we approve the claims as presented by our clerk treasurer this evening.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the claims as presented by our clerk treasurer. Any questions from the audience? Any from council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Passes 5-0. Utility adjustments?
Yes, thank you. Utility adjustments, the same period from September 22nd to October the 5th. The adjustments total of $107.03. And I appreciate your approval of those, please.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the adjustments presented to us by Clerk Treasurer.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the utility adjustments as presented. Any questions from the audience? Any from council? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Passes 5-0. Monty, do you have anything else?
Just real quick on this past weekend's race, we had 10 permits that were issued. Not very many, and 9 of those were actually free as they were veterans. So we didn't collect much from that perspective. And as far as our utility collections for this year, we're doing the citizens, and our group, my group's doing the right, and we're $405,000 greater than we were this time last year in collection.
Wow, that's big.
So that's all, sir.
Thanks, Monty. Item number 9, report from our department supervisors. Tim Gropp with Economic Development.
Good evening, Council. Just a couple updates for you. One is this last week, we were able to close on the Gilman Street parcel, which is the last parcel that was owned by the Redevelopment Commission behind Delara. I think the significance of that is that was the last parcel owned by the Redevelopment Commission on the east side of Main Street. So all the redevelopment efforts that started back in 2011 for that area, this was the final piece of that. So that's a big accomplishment, and looking forward to more around the town, but we are excited about that. Construction probably won't start for that until the spring, but we are closed, and it is in new owner's hands, so we're excited about that. The other big movement today was we took the next step in the redevelopment of the 2500 High School Road development at the intersection of Crawfordsville Road and High School Road. Earlier this evening, the Redevelopment Commission met in special session and authorized the approval of an economic development agreement with a firm called HG Rebar Speedway 2500 LLC, which is a partnership between Hagman Group, which is a financing arm, and Rebar Development to start on moving forward with that design after all the public comment and input that we've received. We're ready to take the next steps. We have some people interested in the site. We need to get moving, so we're excited to move that forward. We still got a few details to work out, so we hope to hash those out this week and get that EDA signed either the end of this week or next week.
Great.
That's it.
Any questions? Thanks, Tim.
All right, thank you.
Next up, Police Chief Jim Campbell.
Good evening. I'm very pleased to report that we had a very successful air race over the weekend. Unlike the 400, they had nice weather. It was a little warm for those sitting in the stands. You know, this is an event that from a crowd size is not all that large, but from a public safety perspective, it's an international event. I mean, from Japan to Germany, Australia to France. I mean, you know, this is one that brings folks in from all over the world, and it televises all over the world. And I think that's what Red Bull, you know, is very successful in making that a very positive thing for people that enjoy watching air races. But it's an interesting group, you know, I mean, the people we sat by all spoke German. The lady that sat in front of me spoke 5 languages. I told her I was still having a little problem with English, but if she talked real slow, I thought she could understand me. But, and again, I do want to say we were supported by the Sheriff's Department, you know, they had, you know, great help from them, and, you know, the IMPD traffic guys on dealing with the traffic. We still have the same issues with what you'd consider homeland security issues because of where all these folks come from, and, you know, you never really know who's mad at who at that particular time. The other piece, I guess, which was good news, an American won the race. So, you know, that seemed to make a lot of people happy, most of them from America. You know, and again, between police, I spent 2 days with Bob, and no, we're not telling stories, right?
No.
Okay. It went very well. Other than that, shred it October 22nd from 10 o'clock to 1. And I know I get on a soapbox about that, but, you know, it's just so important for people to bring, you know, what they want shredded that isn't going to wind up in the hands of somebody that's going to misuse it. You know, and I think the whole drug thing goes without saying. You know, it's unbelievable the amount of, you know, drugs, and I say drugs, it's pharmaceuticals. We don't take real drugs. Don't bring real drugs. You know, and I know it makes Norm happy, but he's not here tonight, so I'm just going to go with that. So
Chief, what day did you say that was?
it's the 22nd, October 22nd.
A Monday?
It should be a Saturday,
That's the 20th.
the 20th.
Just want to be sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's a Saturday.
Thank you.
Chief, I'll ask the obvious. If someone does bring you drugs, you can't accommodate them, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a place to hold them and the drugs. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Fire Chief Bob Fishburne, you got big shoes to fill.
Yeah, good evening. I just want everyone to know that I don't typically wear a T-shirt to the town council meeting, but these are our October shirts. This is the second year that we've done cancer awareness and recognizing with the pink. Especially this year, a lot of our guys were touched pretty closely by it with one of our battalion chief's wives. And, you know, you guys are in town, so she is doing incredibly well and, you know, is home and recovering from all the things that she's had and has a very good prognosis. So our guys will wear these as their duty shirts. They, you know, we got them those last year, and I think next year we want to do a couple things that some of the other departments are doing with some signage on their vehicles where they're making the ladder tins pink. There's 6 screws that hold them together. I was telling Bob about it. Something we'd like to do next year. But that's why I'm wearing this, just to recognize that. And then also to remind everyone that October is Fire Prevention Month. Battalion Chief Hartman has already been in schools last week. He'll be in schools this week, and a couple, of course, next week schools are out for fall break. But when they come back, there's a few preschools that we'll get to, and we take the ladder. We do a lot with the schools throughout the year, but we make an emphasis for fire prevention during the month of October. So that's really all I have, if you have any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Next up, Public Works Director Wendell Walters.
Good evening, council. Just a few updates from our last meeting. All departments are doing all their regular maintenance. Everything's running fine. The water department security gates will be installed this week. The codes will be shared with public safety for them to get in and out. So it's going to be a little adjustment for people that come through the property. We're going to put a timer on it and see how we can control the amount of traffic that goes through that plant. So be aware of that if you do drive through that property. Just a couple announcements. The hydrant flushing, just a reminder, it starts this evening at 8 o'clock and it'll go until 1 a.m. And this will be every evening during the week until the October 20th. So they will start at the south end of town and work all the way through the system, flushing the hydrants and debris out of that system. So just a reminder, if you get up in the morning and the water looks a little cloudy or something, just run it for a couple minutes and it'll clear up. So the guys are out in their company trucks and their badges and shirts, so if there's any questions, please approach them. On October 17th, there's another notice going out. The street department will be doing street cleaning in the old neighborhood. This is where we have our pervious concrete that we installed a number of years ago, and we're going to go through for the season and clean that all up and vacuum it out. And so everybody, please work with us, get your cars off the street. It's a one-day event. We're going to start about 8:30 and work until 3:30, hopefully get everything accomplished so everybody can move back around, the schools can get in and out. So everything should go to schedule. And just some information on a city project. If you hadn't noticed, Lyndhurst is getting paved from 10th Street to Vermont. It got milled out last week, paving going down today. I don't know if they got it finished, but the striping should start. Hopefully that striping crew will move out to high school on Carlsville Road and do that. Hopefully I'm on that schedule there. So that catches us up kind of quickly, briefly, but everything's in motion, everything's getting taken care of. Any questions?
One question, Wendell, on the street cleaning.
Yes.
Are you going to put no parking signs up, or?
Yes, they're supposed to be posting no parking, and we gave notice out, the Facebook and web and everything else, so everything will get posted out. And usually what the guys will do, if we have someone there, someone will go knock on the door so we don't have to tow a vehicle or have the police come over. So work with us and we'll be in and out of there.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question.
Uh-huh.
Roughly how many fire hydrants do we have in town?
Jacob?
Roughly. I said roughly.
Jacob?
I knew you were going to do that.
Is Chief still back there? He might-
There's one every 500 feet and we've got 84 miles of street.
What's that? Sorry.
How many fire hydrants do we have?
We have a few, but I can run that down for you.
Just curious. Thank you.
I have no idea what the number is. They're every 500 feet, I know that.
You can catch him up when you go back.
Thank you.
Cover that.
Thanks, Wendell.
Start counting them. 1, 2, 3.
Next up, Parks and Recreation, Tammy Smith.
Hello. First of all, I want to talk about the trees that were planted last Friday. It was very successful. We got 43 trees planted in the 2 parks in record time of an hour and a half. So big thanks to our Speedway Home Helpers who got the volunteer group, TCC Verizon group. And I want to give a big thank you to the street department and the parks maintenance people, specifically Rob, Mike, and Jacob. The work that they did prior to this event to get all the holes dug and the trees staged for planting was huge. And I think that helped a lot in getting those trees planted successfully and rapidly. So they did it so quickly that we were able to get some loppers out, and our volunteers trimmed up all the trees at Meadowood for us, as well as did some mulching around town. And then Saturday, Relay for Life had an event, a Witches Ride, and it was real successful. It was a lot of fun. Everybody who was there really had a real good time. And so the parks kind of piggybacked on that, and we were having a movie in the park, Hocus Pocus. But unfortunately, a half hour before the movie was to start, a pop-up thunderstorm come through, so we had to cancel it. But we are rescheduling it for this Friday at Leonard Park, same time, 7:30. So it'll be a colder night, but hopefully it won't rain and we can get the movie in. And that's all I have today.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you.
Item number 10, report from our town manager, Jacob Blaisdell.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple items. This is the time of year when a lot of folks are renewing their insurance, and so I start getting a lot of calls from folks asking if they're still in the floodplain. I heard there was a project going on. I heard it was done. What's going on with that? Unfortunately, we're still in the FEMA approval process. So we're waiting to get guidance and word from them that our letter of map revision has been approved by them. So we continue to ask. I think we're at the point we're following up weekly. We believe that they have the information they need from us. We continue to work with our delegation in Washington, our elected officials there. So we keep trying to be the squeaky wheel, trying to move it along as fast as we can. But unfortunately, as of right now, the map has not changed or been updated. So you should continue to renew your insurance. Like we've been saying throughout, even after the map is changed and it's no longer required on properties, you still may want to have some type of insurance. It should be cheaper, but still a good idea to carry flood insurance. And then in other news, our Meadowood Park tank was nominated for Tank of the Year. We just repainted the Speedway spark plugs. So we're getting word out on it, but it is by vote. So we need people to go out and vote on the Speedway spark plugs, Meadowood tank. But of course that was just repainted this year, looking a lot better than it was. It should last several years. So we'll be getting information out on how to vote, and
Who sponsors that?
Is that a national?
it's TNEMEC. I think it's a chemical company that's in the industry. So they you can go out and see all kinds of water tanks that I'm assuming were just repainted this past year. But that's all I have.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
Call order.
Yeah. Item number 11, actually my favorite report of the evening, our town attorney, Bob Clutter.
As usual, I have no report.
Thank you.
That's why it's your favorite.
Thank you. No. Next up, reports from our council members. Eileen Fisher.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you. Councilor Jason Delisle.
I have one thing. I just wanted to thank Speedway Fire Department for last Friday helping out with the Speedway FCA, junior high FCA. I know that group really appreciated all the help, so just want to say thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Councilor Gary Rakes.
No report, except to say that counselors to the right of me, two of them in particular, have worse jokes than Bob's jokes. Relates to the water tank and names for the water tanks and whatnot. They're kind of whispering. Hopefully the mics picked it up. But other than that, I have no report.
Are you saying they're all wet?
Oh, boy. All right. Thanks, Gary. Councilor and Vice President David Lindsay.
I was just going to say we're very thankful that we were nominated for that. That's all I have this evening.
Thanks, Dave. On that note, it's 7:28. We're going to adjourn quickly. Thank you.
Oh, you don't want to say yours?